Good evening and welcome to the Fort Smith City Board of Directors meeting this May 20th of 2025. Usual housekeeping, keep in mind these meetings are being recorded live for the benefit of our residents who cannot be with us in person this evening. At this time, I'm going to ask Minister Lee Kemp to give us the invocation, and I'm going to ask Director Good to lead us in the pledge.
Would you pray with me? Father, we come to you tonight thanking you of the promise of Isaiah, Lord, when he penned those words, that you will keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts in you. Lord, tonight we trust in you. We start this meeting in prayer to say that you alone are sovereign and good. And we ask for your blessing and your prosperity and your peace and your presence over our city, over this meeting tonight. And may the vision that lays before us be a blessing so that we could bless others. Guide our discussion tonight, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. This time we'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Directors Rigo. Here. Good.
Here.
Kemp.
Here.
George Katsavas.
Here.
Christina Katsavas. Here. Settle.
Here.
Martin.
Here.
Okay. Thank you very much. At this time, I will ask if any member of the board has an item of business not already on the agenda. Okay. Thank you. Seeing none, at this time we'll ask for approval of the May 6, 2025 regular meeting minutes.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much. And we do have a special presentation. It's the proclamation for the National Public Works Week, and I have that proclamation in the trunk of my car. So, but thanks to our administrator, our acting administrator who's always on the job. Thank you, Jeff, and we will read this to you. Okay. Whereas Public Works Week is being observed in our city, state, and nation the week of May 18th through 24th of 2025 with the theme People, Purpose, and Presence. And whereas Public Works services provided in Fort Smith, Arkansas are an integral part of the citizens' everyday lives, building a stronger and more viable community and contributing to Fort Smith's quality of place. And whereas the support of an understanding and informed citizenry is vital in the efficient operation of public works systems and programs such as water, wastewater, streets, parks, solid waste management, stormwater, transit, and engineering. And whereas the health, safety, and comfort of Fort Smith greatly depends on these facilities and services. And whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, and construction, are vitally dependent upon the efforts and skills of public works employees at all levels. And whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff public works departments is materially influenced by the people's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform day in and day out. Now, therefore, I, George B. Begill, the mayor of the city of Fort Smith, Arkansas, do hereby proclaim Sunday, May 18th through Saturday, May the 24th of 2025 as Public Works Day in the city of Fort Smith, Arkansas. And I do call upon the citizens of this great community to recognize the importance of public works operations to the high quality of living in Fort Smith and thank each individual involved in public works. So if you see them out on the streets digging ditches or working on water lines, please say thanks to them. In witness thereof, I have hereto set forth my hand and caused the seal of the city of Fort Smith, Arkansas to be affixed this 20th day of May in the year 2025. Let's give our public works employees a round of applause. Okay, at this time we're going to call on our acting administrator for additional comments.
Thank you, Mayor. In keeping with the Mayor's proclamation, I'd like to specifically recognize each of our Public Works departments and the employees that provide services throughout each of the Public Works departments. If you folks could, the directors are in the audience, if they could stand when I call their name. Matt Meeker is the Director of Streets and Traffic Control, representing 73 employees in that department. Stan Snodgrass is our Director of Engineering, representing 15 employees. Sarah Deuster, Director of Parks and Recreation, representing 40 employees. Dwayne McDonald, Director of Solid Waste Services, representing 100 employees. Ken Savage, Director of Transit, representing 34 employees. And Lance McAvoy, Director of Water Utilities, representing 271 employees, with 533 total employees currently serving in the city's 6 public works departments. Thank you very much.
Okay. Again, the work you do day in and day out does not go unnoticed, certainly by me and many, many others across this city. This time we'll go to the first item on the agenda. Mr. Dingman, you recognize.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 1 is an ordinance ordering the demolition of 2 dilapidated structures. Addressing this item this evening is Sean Gard, our Director of Neighborhood Services.
I think I'm live now. All right. Good evening, Mayor, Directors, and Administration. This evening, I have 2 structures before you that I'm seeking approval for demolition action to be carried out by the Neighborhood Services Department. The first structure is located at 3632 Kinkead. On October 21st, 2024, an inspection was conducted on this property based off a complaint that was received into our office of this, for the state of deterioration on the structure, as well as illegal squatting within this property. Upon the initial inspection from the right-of-way, there was a visual evidence of squatting activity, which consisted of trash, bicycles, clothing, camping gear that was sitting outside, and as well as structural damage from years of neglect and deterioration. Multiple notifications was mailed out, as well as placards placed on the property due to its unsafe and unsanitary conditions. Up until this date, we've been out to this property multiple times to have to reboard the structure. And as of just a couple weeks ago, we got a complaint that somebody else was in there. We had the police department come out there and there was an arrest made and the person removed from the property. The sanitary conditions inside this property are really bad. The person that was arrested was from North Carolina and charged with criminal trespassing for damages in an amount of $500. On January 16th, 2025, the certificate of unsafeness was filed with the Sebastian County Assessor's Office, and currently the city of Fort Smith has $5,190 and a penny in liens on this property. The second structure is at 1504 Belle Avenue. Enforcement action on this property originally was initiated on February 23rd, the year 2023, off a complaint that was received into our office. Upon initial inspection from the right-of-way, there was visual evidence of structural damage and deterioration due to neglect and lack of upkeep. Multiple notifications were mailed out as well as posted with no response. The structure was posted with prohibited occupancy placards due to unsafe conditions of the structure. On October 6, 2023, we issued a citation. The owner failed to appear in court and a bench warrant was issued. Since that time, we've had no contact from the owner or from any interested party on this property, and so it continues to deteriorate and is considered to be quite a blight in this neighborhood. On April 15, 2025 this year, a certificate of unsafeness was filed with the Sebastian County Assessor's Office. Currently, the city has liens in an amount of $358.24 and is currently assigned to a contractor for abatement action now for trash and debris overgrowth, and it's just a property we're continually having to maintain now. Currently, we do have more structures that are in the process of getting close to bringing before the board in the near future for unsafe conditions. We are experiencing, just on another note, we are experiencing a rise in vacant residential as well as commercial structures being broken into and squatted in. And at this time, I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. This time we'll ask for citizens' comments, Madam Clerk.
Yes, we have one individual, Mr. Joey McCutcheon.
Joey McCutcheon, Fort Smith. Yeah, I think it's good when we see dilapidated property that we take action. But it seems like the city's taken a lot of action on a lot of property. And I think that's something that the board should be aware of. The board should be aware of, for example, on this property, when these people don't pay the lien and it goes through the process, who ultimately ends up with this property? Is there a deed filed on this property? Is it on, if the city ends up with it, is it on the city tax records, like a lot of properties aren't? What's the transparency process? It's my understanding that back in the day that not only on properties like this where the city board of directors is supposed to be knowledgeable about when we're taking property potentially like this, but also what happens on the back end. And this board should be aware of this because I think there's some people that are making a lot of profit off of this city and transactions that are occurring just like this one. And safety is certainly something we should pay attention to. But when we see people who I've been called who have been targeted for their property, and many of them can't afford to pay these liens when the city comes out, I think that's something that the board should pay attention to. Because the most vulnerable who own property and sometimes can't care for them, sounds like unlike this one, you know, and then their property has a lien, a city lien, and then ultimately their property is auctioned. But I think this board should do a study into the redevelopment authority, propelling Fort Smith future, and future Fort Smith. Thank you, Mayor.
Are there any other citizens' comments, Madam Clerk?
None indicating.
At this time, we'll entertain a motion to adopt the ordinance with suspension of the rules.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, please read the ordinance.
An ordinance ordering the owners of certain dilapidated and substandard structures to demolish same, authorizing the city administrator to cause the demolition of such structures to occur and for other purposes. And this is for structures located at 3632 Kinkead Avenue and 1504 Belle Avenue.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll go to Director Kevin Settle and then Director Neil Martin.
Thank you. Sean, I want to make sure I heard this right. You said the person that was living in that place was from North Carolina, is that correct?
Say that again.
The person living in the place was from North Carolina?
That's correct.
The squatter?
The squatter, his identification was North Carolina.
Thank you.
Director Neil Martin.
I do appreciate you getting that information. I think that's something that the board has been very interested in. So thank you, Director Settle, for asking that. On 3632 Kinkead, how long has that case been open?
We've had that case open, well, actually, I got that information right here. That case was, we initiated that case on October 21st, 2024.
Okay. And then one thing I noticed about that house is HUD bought it in 2004. Do you know anything about the kind of the history? It looks like HUD bought it, sold it to somebody else, like within months. Do you kind of know?
This is a property, it's changed hands multiple times. That, and this is not uncommon what we run into from time to time. When somebody will purchase a structure, sometimes they purchase it online, sometimes at an auction.
Will HUD do that?
HUD from time to time, and I don't want to speak out of turn for them, but a lot of times when we see structures that are being auctioned off or being sold for like pennies on the dollar, sometimes HUD will come in and do a rehabilitation. But the structure, the interior of this structure is unsound.
Yeah.
The sanitary conditions,
The bathtub was really, really rough.
that is human feces in there.
Oh, is that what that was?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Kemp.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Sean, I just wanted to circle back because it looks as if the city did incur, based on the packet, a little over $5,100 in liens on Kinkead Avenue already. is there any pushback that the city could face or appeals post-demolition, especially in light that with the unclaimed mail? I mean, are we confident that that's buttoned up?
In everything that we do, Director Kemp, we follow the state guidelines for legal notification. We actually go above and beyond, where under state statute it allows you can just send a first-class mail. We send certified mail. We do legal searches to make sure we exhaust every means to find if there's anybody else that has interest or vested interest in this property. Not only we send out regular mail, certified mail, but we're also required by law to post notifications on the structure. And we make sure we dot our I's and cross our T's on everything to meet the legal notification process.
I appreciate the due diligence questions. Then, do we feel that these costs, as well as the cost of demolition, these properties, do we have a plan to recover the cost that we are ensuing on these properties? I'm for taking care of blighted property, but is there a plan to what we can do with these post-demolition?
Once we demolish the structure and the city of Fort Smith and we put a lien is placed on the property, if the taxes and the liens go unpaid, it's usually about a 2 to 2.5 year process. The properties that have unpaid liens and fees on them get forfeited to the state for auction, and they'll go before the Commissioner of State Lands Commission for auctioning purposes. And at that time, and the city clerk could probably better address this, at that time when a property is auctioned off, then what it's sold for, that hopefully the city will recoup some of the liens that have been placed on the property.
I just think at some point, and maybe administration can look into this in the future, when we talk about the unhoused population in the city of Fort Smith, one of the biggest things is needing more affordable housing and exploring. I know we've talked about land banking, but at some point, a study session to do a deep dive on our connection with the state and with land banking, and what would that look like for the city of Fort Smith, to figure out how to take these properties, and take care of the unhoused population by providing it. Some of these people are living on support from the government. They get a check one time a month, and it's not enough to pay fair market value on rent. So there are other maneuvers that communities are doing, and I would love to see that placed in a discussion. Thank you, Mayor.
Well, one thing with our department, we go the extra mile. When we come across the structure that's in a dilapidated, deteriorated condition, and the homeowner will contact us and say, we do not have the funds or the means to be able to repair this. And what we do, we have entities will contact us from time to time looking to purchase or buy structures that are dilapidated, deteriorated. Well, they'll demolition and put a low-income house on there. And we try not to be the middleman, but we'll connect A with B and say, hey, here's somebody who might be interested in your property. Give them a call. We don't divulge personal information, but we'll give that homeowner some names and numbers of people who might be interested in the property. They can reach out to themselves. So we try to help as much as we can to get something in the hands, because the last thing we really want to be is a lawn care service for properties across the city that the city does not own.
Thank you, Director Rigo.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Sean, and your team for the work that you're doing with these properties. I mean, as we could see from the photographs, these are tough conditions that you all operate in. And thanks especially for the work with regard to this property on Kinkead. I mean, it's steps away from millions of dollars of investment that's going in to rehabilitate a apartment complex. And I've driven the neighborhood many, many times, and I would say that every other house in that immediate vicinity is very well maintained. It's a very nice neighborhood, and I'm sure that the folks really appreciate the work you guys will be doing to take down this appalling structure. And I would venture to guess that given the character, the charm, and the good status of the neighborhood accepting this house, that would be a prime candidate for a new structure for a family moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions from the board? Okay, seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Directors Rigo?
Yes.
Good?
Yes.
Kemp?
Yes.
George Katsavas? Christina Katsavas?
Yes.
Settle?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
It's approved, 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
We need a
Thank
mo-
you.
We need a motion to adopt the emergency clause.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Directors Good,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
George Katsavas, Christina Katsavas.
Yes.
Settle,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Rego.
Yes.
Motion passes, 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Let's go to item 2.
Item 2 this evening is an ordinance amending the city's Uniform Development Ordinance relating to local regulations for tobacco retailers in the city. Introducing this item is Deputy City Administrator Maggie Rice, and City Attorney Colby Rowe is also present for this and the next 2 related items.
Yes, planning staff received 2 separate citizen inquiries regarding proximity requirements for tobacco retailers to schools and daycares. Currently, Fort Smith has 152 businesses that sell tobacco-related products. 26 of those businesses are classified as tobacco retailers, and 15 are within 1,000 feet of a school or daycare. The proposed amendment requires the land-use tobacco retailer locate at least 1,000 feet from a school or daycare. On May 13th, the Planning Commission held a public hearing to consider amending the definition and location requirements for tobacco retailer in the UDO. Ms. Talisha Richardson was present to speak in support of the amendment. The Planning Commission voted 6 in favor with 0 opposed to recommend the UDO be amended. The Board of Directors last week placed this amendment on tonight's agenda. The board asked staff to determine the feasibility of applying the amendment retroactively. Enclosed within the packet is an opinion from Colby Rowe, City Attorney, stating retroactive application results in a regulatory taking, which could result in the city being ordered to compensate the 15 business owners that would be impacted. The enclosed ordinance makes the 15 existing tobacco retailers non-conforming land uses. As non-conforming land uses, they would be allowed to operate until abandoned.
Okay. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, are there any citizens' comments on this item?
Yes, we have several, first being Stephen Smith.
Point of order, Mayor, if I could, just 1 second. I've been told by people via text that the live stream audio isn't working currently, and the only way to get that fixed with Josh and I talking is to reset the system. So perhaps, do we want to let him reset the system so that we can have this for the viewers live?
Yes, let's do that. Josh, can you take care of that?
Thank you.
Please indicate when you're prepared.
Okay. Stephen Smith.
Good evening, directors. My name is Stephen Smith, 1206 Garrison Avenue here in Fort Smith. I represent the owner of the vapor station as it relates to this amendment that is currently in front of you. Just by way of background, my client operates 5 stores that are categorized as tobacco retailer under the UDO. And as it relates to the proposed amendment, my client has 2 stores that would be adversely affected. While I believe that this board obviously has the right to reject this amendment, I am also here to propose some alternatives to the amendment. And my understanding is that this board is considering not only a 1,000-foot distance from a school or daycare, but it is also considering a retroactive application, which would wipe out existing tobacco retailers and prevent future stores within that perimeter. One alternative that I would ask the board to consider is to shelf this amendment altogether and consider possibly finding that tobacco retailers be conditional uses in all zones. Next, if that is not a viable option, I would ask that the term daycare be removed from the proposed amendment and that the distance be reduced to 500 feet. While I know that the Planning Commission went to 1,000 feet because that is the proximity of alcohol or liquor stores to schools or churches, I believe that what the board needs to consider tonight is the fact that it would result in an unequal impact. And I know my time is up, but I'd like to make a final comment here, and that is that
You may continue. Go ahead.
we've got a situation where you look at Northside and you take into consideration 1,000 feet. That puts a location up beyond Walgreens at the intersection of Greenwood and Rogers. Additionally, I would ask the board to think geographically about where we are when we think about the Ramsey Junior High School campus and the fact that we have grocery stores and we have convenience stores that have tobacco counters, sell cigarettes, sell smokeless tobacco, sell alcohol. And those would not be impacted because you can also buy chips and other retail items. And I thank you for allowing me additional time, but I would ask that if this board goes forward tonight, that it scale back the distance or consider conditional use for these tobacco retailers. And I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk?
Next, we have Han Chung.
Thank you, Board. I'm actually here to address the items 2, 3, and 4. If I run over by a few seconds, please give me some grace. Dear members of the Board, my name is Han Chung, and I am the landlord of the commercial property at 123 North 22nd Street, as well as several other properties throughout Fort Smith. I'm here to express my deep concern regarding the proposed amendment to the UDO, specifically the provision that would prohibit tobacco retailers from operating within 1,000 feet of schools or daycare. Let me be clear. My concerns are not with tobacco or vaping as businesses. In fact, I don't like that stuff. But with the fairness and transparency of the city's processes and the serious financial consequences for compliant property owners like myself. To contrast the lack of transparency, I want to mention that whenever I request a zoning change, I have to inform all my neighbors within a certain radius and do it over a certain amount of time. This courtesy was not extended to me by the Planning Commission, even though my building was the catalyst for this action and was directly impacted by their decisions. Based on exactly 2 inquiries by citizens on May 1st, the proposed amendment was developed and advanced without appropriate notice or stakeholder consultation. The amendment was originally proposed by city planning staff for a 500-foot buffer, and within 1 meeting, the distance was suddenly increased to 1,000 feet. I only became aware of this proposed change after being contacted by my tenant, and as someone that's directly impacted by this ordinance, I was not given the opportunity to weigh in, which undermines public confidence in the fairness of the process. My tenant, Mr. Hafid, applied for a tobacco shop registration in December in the commercial light zone where tobacco is by right permitted. He followed every legal step, receiving fire, building approvals, securing a state tobacco permit, and ultimately receiving a business license from the city in April, to now threaten his ability to operate, to expand in the future, and to modify the newly formed business due to a retroactive zoning change is not only unfair, it sends a troubling signal to all property owners and entrepreneurs in Fort Smith. The sudden extension of the buffer to 1,000 feet affects 14 out of 26 businesses, whereas the 500-foot buffer only affects 2, including my tenants. Without clear justification or meaningful engagement, this kind of shift not only devalues my property, but creates regulatory uncertainty across the city. Several of my other properties also fall within the newly restricted zones, affecting their future viability and marketability. So, also, furthermore, legal counsel for the city, Mr. Rowe, has already warned that retroactive application of the ordinance could be deemed an unconstitutional regulatory taking under Arkansas law. The financial and legal risks to the city are real. I'm thinking multiple millions. I respectfully request the board to, 1, reject the current amendment or to scale it back, 2, to fully grandfather existing businesses, 3, to commit to a transparent, inclusive public process for all future zoning amendments with notice to all that are affected. And 4, to evaluate the broader consequences of cumulative regulations on tobacco and CBD. Following on with what Mr. Smith says, at Chaffin, you can go to Walmart, get the same stuff, just about whatever other school, but yet you guys are specifically targeting this one retailer.
Okay.
That's
Thank
all.
you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks, Dr. Chong. Keep in mind, he was addressing items 2, 3, and 4.
Next, we
Madam
have
Clerk.
Rex Cronister.
Good evening, and thank you for hearing me. My name is Rex Cronister, and I represent King Tobacco, who would have 5 stores affected based on the 5,000-foot, the 1,000-foot radius. He'd have 5 stores affected. The issue here, I believe, is the distance. I understand that the city wants to have some degree of control in this area. We haven't had it. When I grew up, cigarettes were everywhere. They were in restaurants. You could get them from a vending machine. That's changed. Well, I understand that. But to have some fair application, the 1,000-foot tied to liquor stores and the churches, why should that be where cigarettes are concerned? 500-foot, if you're going to do that, that only affects 2 businesses versus 15. The time to process this has also been so fast. Within a week, we're here to this point in time. There needs to be some time to study this and see how it will affect the city. Because, as has been pointed out to you, this is going to generate claims. It has to. You're putting 14 people completely out of business. And I think it's now, I think Maggie suggested that maybe found a 15th one out there. So you got 15 people you're going to put out of business. And by the way, that number could double in claims, because if I lease from you and I get put out of business, as Mr. Hong just suggested, you're going to have a claim by that landowner and by the lessee who operates the business. And those claims can, I spoke with an accountant, and the standardized ways of evaluating tobacco businesses, those claims could clearly run into in excess of $1 million or more per one of these claims, let alone 15.
Okay.
And that's using accepted standards that I got from an accountant.
Okay.
So we've got to ask ourselves what we're trying to accomplish, along with the cost of accomplishing it,
Okay.
and putting out business. My client's been in
Okay.
business in one location over 6 years.
Okay. You're 2
But now you're
minutes.
trying to put him out of business.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Talisha Richardson.
Good afternoon or good evening. I wanted to, first of all, speak on items 2, 3, and 4 with regard to the vaping situation. As a former school board member, the school system saw a number of students come in and out from elementary school all the way up to high school. They are not necessarily going into vape stores, if you will, but they are getting these products from somewhere. The intent with asking for a citizen's amendment was simply because the business that's located across the street from Northside High School is painted in vibrant primary colors, red and yellow. When I sent the email to the planning commissioners, it was after discussion with the planning department, because you follow the process. There is a due process, and that's how we found out about the amendment and the law regarding the UDO. The meetings are public, so people know that. The request was not for, it was basically to allow new businesses not to go back into the school zones, if you will. The 1,000 feet was a request that was brought up not only by the planning commissioners, they were discussing it, but I also brought it up. The reason being is we don't know, again, we don't know the effects of these substances, the things that are in them, just like we didn't know what the causes and considerations of cancer are today, or alcohol for that matter. So I'm pleading the board to just simply move forward with the amendment as written and reconsider item 4 where these businesses have the opportunity to be grandfathered in that are currently compliant out of goodwill.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Next, we have Amy Williams.
Hello, Board. This I find very personal because that same store drives me crazy. When I go down there and I see those colorful cigarette shop, then what's next? A porn shop? Alcohol? What are we going to allow to be that close to our schools? I'm for this amendment, and I'm not about keeping the ones that are there. And I don't know how the city allowed them to get there, to break what the already rule was. Okay, so I have a lot of knowledge of the school system, and I see kids that get expelled, suspended for having vapes on them, and often they're colorful, cotton candy flavored, and it's just terrible. I do want to say that, in summary, zoning laws in schools are a vital tool for our community to protect the children from, and to uphold community values and to ensure educational environments are conducive as possible to learning our healthy development. These regulations are a dynamic area of the law, consistently evolving as new products emerge. And then why do we have these? We want to protect our children and the development to minimize their exposure to adult behaviors, right? Isn't that what we want? Not very many of you are looking me in the eye as I'm looking out across there. Community standards to reflect local values about what's appropriate near kids. Again, about half of you can make eye contact.
Okay. Thank you very much, ma'am.
And last, we have Crystal Cadelli.
Good evening. I am with Miss Talisha and Amy Jo on the exposure that our children are getting with these tobacco and vape stores. Don't know how it fell off our radar. I feel like they should be held at the same standard of liquor stores. I think our children are even more susceptible to vaping than liquor because it's easy accessible for some reason. And I think a vape store close to a school is very easy for someone of age to go in and buy the vapes and stand out and sell them to the school-aged kids. There are more dangers to vapes than there are to cigarettes because people have the ability to put THC or some other liquid that could harm our children, not only their lungs, but actually, kill them. So, I know that this is a tough situation because the city doesn't want to be, exposed to lawsuits. So I'm not sure the 1,000-foot, ask is acceptable, or the retroactive, but I think that there should be some sort of middle ground where maybe the retroactive is a certain amount of years, or if, we can move the footage down to 700 or 500 feet where it limits some of the, exposure. But, I do think that there does need to be a line drawn and, an enforced code like we do for liquor stores. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Madam Clerk?
That's all indicating.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, motion to approve item 2
Okay,
With suspension of the rules?
with suspension of the rules.
thank you. Madam Clerk, please read the ordinance. Did we get a second?
Well, I want to make another motion.
Oh, hold on, he's up first.
If there's got to be a second to make.
I was going to say, before we can have any discussion or anything, we have to throw this on here first, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
I'll need a second.
Okay.
Okay, we do have a second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please read the ordinance.
An ordinance amending the 2019 Unified Development Ordinance of the City of Fort Smith.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we will go to board comments, and Director Christina Casavas was first in the queue, and then Director Settle.
My concern with this is a violation of due process because we've really given no notice, held no hearings. I agree with a lot of the things Mr. Smith said about, conditional use. I feel like 1,000 feet may be excessive. And, I'm kind of batching all these to talk about them at once, but, what I'm really concerned about is the idea that we would retroactively remove someone's business license. I feel like that tells the business community there's no guarantee of stability or fairness in the city, and it undermines the confidence in our regulatory process. As a business owner myself, I remember what it took to open my business. It was, a lot of sweat equity, a lot of money that, I saved. It was my life savings. Some people take business loans, and to go in and say, now we're putting you out of business, that's not a government I want to be a part of. That's not a government that, I want to do, the city I want to do business in. So that's my position on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Director Settle, you're next in the queue.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'd like to get some clarification, Kobe and Maggie. This ordinance here does not retroactive, is that correct?
That's correct.
So a business that's in the zones would be out of conformance, but still be able to operate the business as long as that business stays open for how long it is, correct?
Correct.
So this ordinance tonight would not put anybody out of business, is that correct?
Correct.
It would not impact the existing businesses in the zones at all today?
Correct.
So only thing it would do is if they wanted to sell the property or transfer the business in the future, then that becomes a legal nonconformance, correct?
It would be non-conforming. The business, that land use can continue until it's considered abandoned.
Until it's abandoned. Is that right, Kobe?
Yes, she's right.
So to talk about taking people's businesses away is totally false?
It was mentioned last week.
If we went retroactive. This ordinance does not retroactive at all. Legal counsel says you can't do that because then it becomes a takings and there's lawsuits pending. So this ordinance does not do that at all. Is that correct, Kobe?
It is not drafted to be retroactive. That is correct.
So as of today, it passes 30 days, and there was planning commission meetings, there was discussions. All we did is bring this up 2 weeks faster. That's all we did. Because this would have came to this 1st of June. All we did is bring it up to May. So no businesses would be impacted as of today. Future businesses would be, but today's business would not be impacted. Right, Colby?
That's correct. It is not drafted to be retroactive, though our firm was asked, is retroactive possible? And that's the reason for the opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Director George Casavage, Director Kemp, and then Director Rigo.
Maggie, you said that this will affect 15. I'm confused here because these attorneys were talking about being retroactive here.
Yes,
So
sir.
what happened here?
Last week, the board requested the feasibility of making the ordinance retroactive. The ordinance as drafted does not
And when
make
you came
it
to study
retroactive.
session, you came late and you said that was, you can't do that, correct?
Correct.
You can't do retroactive for state law.
Legally, you can't do that.
Right.
Correct.
This ordinance
And this
says,
ordinance does not do that.
does not do that.
It's not retroactive.
Unless they sell the business or transfer ownership or whatever.
No. The board would have to make.
What's the purpose of it then?
So this UDO amendment would put a proximity requirement as written of 1,000 feet
Right.
from any school or daycare to a new tobacco retailer land use.
Right.
The board would need to make an amendment to the ordinance to make it retroactive. If the board chose to make the amendment to make it retroactive at 1,000 feet, it would impact 15 existing tobacco retailers.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
And versus 500 feet would impact 2.
I don't have those numbers.
Is what-
Yes, I could get those numbers. I don't have them in front of me at present.
But there's not an amendment on there to make it retro.
That's correct.
You know,
So this only impact new businesses going forward, George.
this remind me of the Regina House of Dolls deal. Y'all remember that?
I do, but
Cost
that
the
was.
city $1 million
But
to buy
George,
something on
that's totally
principle.
different because they were trying to
Principle.
shut it down versus
Well-
something that makes it this is not retro.
Yeah.
Is that not what we're talking about in item 4, though, to revoke the license?
That was a discussion, but people wanted to ask discussion. There's nothing there. There's no ordinance or anything on 4. This is item 2. This all this does is put a 1,000-foot buffer for new businesses going forward.
Okay, Maggie, on one more question.
Yes, sir.
On item 3, unlawful to purchase by any person under 21 years of age, correct? Item 3,
For item 3,
yeah, hemp products under 21 years of age.
Yeah, George, this is item 2.
Yeah, I know that, but I'm just curious, what's the age limit now to purchase cigarettes?
for cigarettes?
Cigarettes and hemp, or vape, whatever.
Cigarettes is 21.
Vape's 21 as well.
Yes, vape
Vape's
is 21 as well, but there's not a, you want to,
There's Arkansas legislation that was passed in 2021 that attempted to prohibit hemp-derived CBD, as hemp-derived products, consumable products, to make the age limit 21 years of age, and no one under 21 could purchase it. That act was challenged in a federal lawsuit attacking its constitutionality. Again, in 2025, this past legislative session, the General Assembly has enacted another act, even broader than the 2021 act, that attempts to regulate consumable hemp products. If those acts stand, once all the challenges get played out in the federal court system, Arkansas law will be that you have to be at least 21 years of age to purchase consumable hemp products. So, I mean, that's where, if the challenges fail, that will be the law. But it's not today. So as far as, hemp-derived consumable hemp products, I don't think there is an applicable state statute. Again, we're talking hemp-derived CBD, not marijuana-derived CBD.
And this is coming from the Arkansas legislature, not the city of Fort Smith.
That's correct. Yeah, the item 3 references a new act that was passed by the General Assembly in 2025, and the resolution is just a resolution of this board supporting the General Assembly's efforts to regulate those types of products.
Okay, thank you.
Director Kemp and then Director Rigo.
Thank you, Mayor. I seconded this because I wanted to put this on here for discussion. I have had good conversations with multiple people about this in preparation of tonight, and I do have questions on this where with the UDO as stated here for 2019 with 1,000 feet, can the board tonight amend that to 500 feet? Or is this a vote to approve or deny this specific one? Or can the feet be amended?
yes, sir.
let's do
The
that.
footage can be amended.
Yeah.
500 feet.
So the question before I make a motion then would be, if we wanted to direct these endeavors to be under a conditional use, meaning every one of those is brought to the consideration of the board, is that in addition to something like this, or is that writing it into this sort of write-up of the UDO? But if, for instance, I give you some examples. The hard part about the space allotment, that one that was mentioned, I think even here, that was brought to my attention as well, was, say, the old Advanced Auto Parts on Rogers and Greenwood. A vape shop wanted to go there. I would say it's within the 1,000 feet.
Yes, sir.
You have Walgreens selling things right across the way, and the argument that was presented to me was, if it was going in there, would anyone really have had a problem with it at that particular location versus the location that was brought up on the future agenda items we're about to talk about? And the answer was, well, probably not. It probably would be, at the side of it is. So for me, it's hard to think of this in the allotment of feet as much as it is, I am passionate about this topic. I, as a professional pastor, am handling situations alongside families of teenagers that are getting access to these vapes, even marijuana, and this is an epidemic here. It does need something, but I also am sympathetic when you start talking about hard numbers. I probably wouldn't have had an issue with the one down there by Advanced Auto Parts. I do have great concerns about one that's 40 feet in front of Northside High School classroom. So all that to say, if we were going to go conditional use, is that different, or is that in addition or alongside parallel with this UDO?
That is a different UDO amendment, and just for clarification, conditional uses do not go all the way to the board unless appealed. They terminate at the Planning Commission.
So when the board previously has done this with storage units, many storage units, how were those not only requiring the Planning Commission, but also the board?
Yes, that is a separate land use process. We call it a development plan is what we called it within the UDO, and that at present, the only land use that has that process is the mini storage land use.
So my concerns are, I'm all for the free market, but if we don't have any sort of development plan like this in order, and we just get it within this, there may be some businesses that I would be okay with where they might be going in, and there would be some that maybe are in that zone, but that we really probably wouldn't be for other factors. I personally would love to see the discussion brought back so that each of those cases could be handled in their own merit. But if we have teenagers that are struggling with this and do nothing about it, then we're doing it to our own selves. I mean, if we allow the market just to develop the way it develops, where in here do we care about the next generation that isn't here to speak up for itself? So I think for me, maybe it's additional, if I would like to make a motion to amend this to 500 feet. So, one.
Say that again.
I do make a motion to move that we would adjust the 2019 UDO ordinance as stated here to 500 feet instead of 1,000 feet. I don't know if anybody wants to second that, it's fine. Okay, George second. And then I guess
One amendment at a time.
okay,
One at a time.
all right.
Okay.
And then can we have a discussion about that amendment, Mayor?
Yes, any discussion about the amendment?
Jared wants to go, and I want to go.
Director Rego, you're recognized.
Well, I had a few questions for, I believe, Ms. Rice and Ms. Rowe about item 2 in general. Why daycares?
Because that is part of what was presented via the citizen inquiries that we received. It was
Okay.
included in school and daycares, and we do consider daycares as a quasi-school type land use.
Sure. Okay, thank you for that clarification. So if I understand the materials correctly for item 2, there are 14 tobacco businesses currently within 1,000 feet of a school or daycare. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, sir, but it is 15 now. We found one more today.
Okay. How many of those 15 would you say are within 1,000 feet of either of our high schools?
If you'll give me just a second,
Sure.
I'll tell you the exact number. There are 3 within 1,000 feet of Northside.
To include that includes the brand-new one there on 22nd Street?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and are those 3 also within 500 feet?
1.
Okay, I had a hard time seeing the graphic.
Two are within 500 feet of north side.
Okay. And then there's none within either parameter of south side, is that what you're saying, Director Settle?
None on South Side.
So, thank you. So the age to sell tobacco is 21. Is there an age around the purchasing of vaping equipment?
Yes, it's 21.
That's 21. Okay, so, but because of a outstanding constitutional challenge, there's currently no regulation on the sale of CBD products as far as age?
That's correct. I mean, the Arkansas law is 21, but it's challenged in federal court, and a federal judge has issued a preliminary injunction which prohibits the enforcement of that act until the constitutional issues are resolved.
So have you heard, Mr. Rowe, I mean, I know it's probably not in your realm, but I think it's a question worth asking. Have you heard anecdotally or in your research around this topic, is this injunction or this disparity presenting, I guess, challenges, if you will, for, the enforcement of the correct age for purchasing? I mean, are 15-year-olds, coming in and purchasing CBD products, but being prohibited from, cigarettes and from vape pens and devices themselves? I mean, it seems like that's I would imagine that would be a tough situation for a clerk at a store to navigate, or that seems like it screams for chaos. And so I would hope that there's a resolution on that soon. Do you have any sense of what the time looks like on some of those outstanding cases?
Well, I called the Arkansas Attorney General's office today to speak to one of the attorneys involved and didn't get a call back, but there's currently an appeal to the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals, the federal Court of Appeals, and so the federal district court action, which is filed in Little Rock, is currently stayed pending the appeal to federal court. So I don't know the status as we sat here tonight, but it's a lawsuit's been filed it's filed in 2023 after that original act was passed. So hopefully there'd be resolution within the next 9 to 12 months.
Sure. And Mr. Rowe, I appreciated your follow-up to curiosity and thoughts that were expressed last week about retroactivity, as it would come to potentially removing active business licenses, and the clarity you provided there is very much appreciated. I had one last question at this juncture for Ms. Rice. When it comes to daycare, when it comes to the current prohibitions around distances with liquor stores from schools and churches, are daycares bundled in with schools in that context?
Yes.
Interesting. Thank you.
Director Settle, and then Director Christina Savage, and then we'll go to Director.
Thank you, Mayor. Board, we have an opportunity to protect the kids of our city. And sounds to me we're going to change what we can do to protect our kids. 15 businesses already in the zone. We can't change those. We're not talking about changing those. We're talking about the future. Protecting our kids is one of the reasons I ran. And we have an opportunity to protect the future of our kids. Who in the heck? They're marketing towards kids. Cotton candy? Come on. That's strictly for kids. And we have a chance to change and do something for the future of our kids. And we're worried about 500 extra feet. A football and a half length difference. To my mind, 1,000 feet is too short. I'm willing to keep it there. I'd go a mile, in my opinion. But it is my business because I represent this city. It is my business because I care about the kids of this city. It is my business.
Let's have some more.
Okay? If you want to talk to me outside of here, we'll talk outside of here. But it's my business because I protect the kids of this city.
Thank you.
Any board member should think about the kids and the future of this city. Because we have one shot to do it right with our youth. If you don't think there's an epidemic at our schools, you're kidding yourself. Happens every day at our schools, and they're doing everything they can at schools to get those kids righted. We have a chance to make some difference here. Is it going to be perfect? No, but we can make a change and make a difference. I'm asking the board, as it is, leave it alone, approve it, and if we need to modify it down the road, we can. There's nothing wrong with what we got here. We should leave it alone, we should move on. Protecting our kids is our number one job.
Director Christina Casavas, then Director Neil Martin, and then Director Kemp.
You know, I will say that I watched my grandmother die of lung cancer. I took care of her, and I don't believe anyone should be smoking anything. But I'm glad you mentioned the future, because I think what we are talking about here is the future of regulation in the city. We're looking at turning ourselves into a nanny state. Today it's tobacco, tomorrow it's plastic straws, maybe it's the, you know, size of soft drinks, and they do this. They do it in New York. You can't get a plastic bag. You've got to take your own bag. That's not where I want to see this city move to. I think either you believe in limited government or you don't. You believe in the free market or you don't. I think that the free market will regulate a lot of this, especially places that are advertising to children. And that's my thought on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Neil Martin.
Hey, Maggie, I know that Mr. Smith brought this up, but what was the notification process for that item going to the Planning Commission last week? I didn't know about it, but what was the process for that making it to the Planning Commission?
So what is before you tonight is a text amendment to the zoning code. It doesn't change anyone's zoning on their property. It's a text amendment to the zoning code. And with those, we publicize in the paper because that's what we're required to do by state law.
What paper?
The Northwest Arkansas Democrat Gazette.
Okay.
Yes, and then of course it's included within our agendas that go out, but that's our notification process for UDO amendments.
Okay. So they would have to have seen it in the paper, Northwest Arkansas Democrat Gazette, or they would have needed to seen the Planning Commission agenda.
Yes.
Right. So it was on the agenda when the packet went out. When did the packet go out prior to the meeting?
The packet goes out Thursday or Friday prior to the public meeting. Of course, it was also on the study session. We discussed it at the Planning Commission study session the week before.
Okay. So you talked about it at the Planning Commission study session.
And then the public hearing on May 13th.
Okay, thank you.
Director Kemp.
Thank you, Mayor. Maggie, if the UDO was approved with the 1,000 feet, and let's say this amendment that's proposed right now to 500 doesn't pass, and we go back to this one, and there is somebody that is within 875 feet of something, but the way that allotment is and where it's positioned in land and different things of that nature, can they appeal to be reconsidered in there are certain circumstances, or is it just a blanket, don't even talk about it?
There would not be a variance process, which is what you're thinking of, because Arkansas state law prohibits variances to land use. The proper juncture would be to rezone or seek a text amendment, change the code.
And then the other question is, you had mentioned that it was a development plan, not necessarily a conditional use, when I was speaking about why not bring each of these cases to the board, such as the mini storage conversation?
Yes, sir.
What would be this right here doesn't enable that process? That would be a separate thing to be brought up. Is that correct?
If you wanted to make an amendment to what is before you tonight to make the tobacco retailer land use a DP in each of the zoning districts, which it's currently allowed, which it's allowed in C2 all the way through C6 and the FBC, then you could do that. And our DP process would default to, that's what it looks like in the land use chart. DP stands for development plan. Defaults to, we would have to craft an amendment. We'd amend the ordinance to make sure that the language followed the mini storage approval process.
Thank you for that answer. Does the Planning Commission need to hear, or does an ordinance need to have, if it is in that case, let's say that was a case that was presented later here, does that null and void this feet requirement, or is it better to specify the feet requirement even if you are going through that process?
Well, I think that would be a question for the board. Now, if you pass the amendment tonight, there would not be any allowed within 1,000 feet of a school or a daycare. And if you want to make the land use a DP in addition to that, outside of all the blue areas that you see on your screen, if somebody wanted to apply for a tobacco retailer, it would have to go to the Planning Commission and the board for approval.
Well, I share, maybe in more calm fashion, Director Settle's passion, but I will say that there is much work to be done with the state legislature here, more than it is at the city level. And the problems that I am personally helping people through are within businesses that are well within the feet requirement of any of this. And, we need to figure out enforcement that these places, and I know that was kind of leaning into point 3, so I'll just keep it brief, that how are they getting it? And I think that is important. That's something that needs to be looked at, and we need to put some enforcement, but I don't necessarily think that is a city director conversation as much as it other ones. I stand with my amendment as we have proposed currently to move it to 500.
Director Rigo.
Thank you, Mayor. So right now, what's before us, item number 2, has no retroactivity in it. Doesn't sound like anyone's contemplating introducing that. So the businesses that exist and are open for business today would not be impacted. This would make a change for people contemplating opening tobacco, vape, CBD businesses in the future, and it would impact the status of the 14 businesses if they were to ever change ownership, go out of business, have a change in their status now. Is that accurate, Maggie?
Yes, be deemed abandoned for the 15 existing.
And so the question before us now is keep it 1,000 feet. Well, the actual question is, do we reduce to 500 feet? And so can you help us understand, Maggie, how that's measured, how that's applied around a building? And the context of the question, I suppose, is it accurate? Was it an accurate statement that Director Kemp made a little while ago that if somebody was seeking to put in a tobacco vape CBD business on the the west of the south side there of Greenwood and Rogers, where the old auto parts shop was at that intersection, that would fall within 1,000 feet of some portion of Northside High School? Was that accurate?
That is accurate, yes.
Okay. And so that's, I think, a really interesting illustration about the 1,000 feet requirement. But could you tell us a little bit about how that's measured?
Yes, sir. It's measured from property line to property line. So yes. So the campus-wide, Northside has a very large campus, so it would be from the perimeter. If you'll look on your map, there's the red, right in the center, there's a red dot, and that's the Northside campus. Right
Josh,
there, yeah.
Josh, scoot the mouse over.
Nope, to the left. Right there. Thank you. That's Northside. And so that's from their campus, and so it's going to be from their property lines, and then we measure 500 feet or 1,000 feet.
So would that former auto parts location fall within 500 feet?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any further discussion? And we've got an amendment.
We're going to vote on the amendment from
We're going to vote on the amendment.
to go from 1,000 to 500 feet.
Okay. We're voting on the amendment, Madam Clerk.
Just for 500 feet, right?
Right.
Your motion, okay. Let's vote.
Directors Kemp,
Yes.
George Katsavas.
Yes.
Christina Katsavas.
Yes.
Settle,
No.
Martin,
No.
Rigo,
Yes.
Good.
No.
Motion passes 4 in favor and 3 opposed.
Okay. Okay, at this time, thank you. At this time, we're going to vote on this item as amended.
Well, We're voting on what, Mayor?
We're going to vote on this item as amended, correct?
Item 2?
Yes,
Yes.
as amended.
Meaning,
I thought the motion passed at that.
that just is amending it from 1,000 to 500. Now you have to vote it in.
Now we have to vote.
Okay, got you.
Yes.
Directors George Katsavas?
Yes.
Christina Katsavas?
No.
Settle?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Rigo?
Yes.
Good?
Yes.
Kemp?
Yes.
Motion passes, 6 in favor and 1 opposed.
Okay. This time we will vote on to adopt the emergency clause.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Please call the roll.
Directors Christina Katsavas?
No.
Settle?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Rigo?
Yes.
Good?
Yes.
Kemp?
Yes.
George Katsavas?
Yes.
Motion passes, 6 in favor and 1 opposed.
Okay. Item 3.
This item is a resolution supporting Arkansas legislation concerning the regulation of consumable hemp products. Ms. Rice will introduce this item.
Yes, the Board of Directors requested an ordinance prohibiting the sale of CBD products to anyone under the age of 21. Enclosed within the packet is an opinion from Colby Rose, City Attorney, outlining the state legislature's first and second attempts to govern this matter, Act 629 and Act 934 respectively. At present, there is a federal injunction challenging the constitutionality of the law. If it is deemed constitutional, Act 934 enacts a law prohibiting the sale of consumable hemp products to anyone under the age of 21. Enforcement of Act 934 is through Arkansas Tobacco Control. Attached for your consideration is a resolution in support of Act 934.
Okay. Thank you. Any comments on that item? Dr. Chung has already spoken on it. Any other comments on item 3?
We did have.
Citizen comments.
Citizens' comments?
Yes, Han Chung for item 3.
Okay. He's
Already-
good.
No further comments, okay. And then Talisha Richardson.
I wanted to come back up to give clarification to the board regarding a couple items. I wanted to give you some statistics. In 2023, Arkansas reported some of the highest adult smoking and teen vaping rates in the United States, with 15% of the adults reporting current smoking and 18% of high school seniors using vape products in the past 30 days. In 2022, 10.4% of Arkansas adults used e-cigarettes compared to 7.7% nationally. Additionally, 19.6% of Arkansas high school students use electronic vape products in the past 30 days. These are statistics that are in our community. Arkansas in 2016 and 2017 had one of the highest tobacco uses in the entire nation, with Virginia, Kentucky, and Oklahoma. We were not even a tobacco-producing state. And now we have vape stores in our communities next door to medical facilities. We do not come across as a health-conscious, youth-oriented community. As Board of Directors, you have a right, along with the Planning Commission, to make a difference. We don't need to wait for the state. We need to protect our own in our community starting today. 1,000 feet, I'm a business owner, but I respect the individuals within this community by being a good steward over my business and following the ordinances. This request was not to do anything retroactive, but to prohibit future looks that are not good for our community. We have several of these stores next door to clinics. Clinics. Think about that.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments, Madam Clerk, on 3?
That's all indicating.
Okay. We need a motion.
Motion to approve item number 3.
Okay. Need a second.
Second.
Second. This time we'll entertain comments from the board. Director Settle.
So I brought this up to the board last week, asking for an ordinance, and then find out there's a federal injunction that prohibits it. So I'm good. I support this resolution. Colby, let me ask you a question. Is it a federal injunction statewide or nationwide?
Oh, it's a federal injunction as to the Arkansas legislation. So it prohibits the state from enforcing that current legislation that prohibits anyone under the age of 21 from buying consumable hemp products.
So it only affects state only?
Yeah.
So the Supreme Court listened to arguments 2 weeks ago about overreaching the federal injunctions from the Trump administration. If that gets overturned by the Supreme Court, would this get overturned?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah, it is.
Because it's state, it's an injunction from a federal judge, undoubtedly, but it's limited to a state law. I see that as a little different from one federal district judge prohibiting the enforcement of a national law in every single jurisdiction of the state.
Do you mind looking that up and just see what our options are? Because, theoretically, in a month and a half, we'll get a Supreme Court ruling by the end of June for that argument, so.
Yeah, yes, I will look into that.
Okay. I hope the board supports this. I think this is a good thing. Having a state law that allows you to sell CBD, hemp-based CBD to any person, right? Any age. Is that correct, Colby?
Right now, there's not a restriction on age because I don't know why. But this is we're not talking about vape.
I know. We're talking about gummy bears and things that they're looking towards kids. And here we go again. And back what I said before, we have an opportunity to try to protect our kids. I understand we can't do an ordinance now, but I will tell you that my gut tells me I'll do something there, but I'm going to go with what staff and legal says, do a resolution. So opportunity to continue to help protect kids, and hopefully this gets put in state law and it helps protect kids going forward. I just can't believe people are fighting over people under the age of 21 and not protecting kids. That just blows my mind that we have people that are doing everything they can to not make it protecting our kids. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Director Kemp.
I concur with Director Settle. It is sad that you have to have this sort of process, and then to say that the young people are not your target audience when you fight so hard to sell to that target audience. The targeting age of anything that is branding is these middle school years. And if you get a kid to love Nike when he's in middle school, he'll love Nike the rest of his life. And I am in perfect support of this. I hope our board is as well. The Arkansas legislation, I think that this is not the only thing that'll be the thing that'll fix it, because my understanding after talking to one parent even before this meeting is, and I'm very novice in this area, but Delta 9, which is what the THC they're testing for, they can have Delta 8, 9, and 10 in the chemical of this or whatever, and if they can get Delta 9 down to the certain threshold, because that's all that people care about, it can still have the Delta 8 and the Delta 10, and then that's how they can sell this within these ideas of these gummies. And we just don't need to be naive here. We need to stand up for the next generation. And I've talked to teenagers that are addicted to this stuff, and they're trying to get off the addiction, like they want to change, and yet it is addictive. And so I just don't think that this age needs us to make adult decisions. And I hope that we can get something like this done from the state legislator, federal government, law enforcement, figure out what we can do to help in this. Thank you.
Director Rigo.
Thank you, Mayor. And certainly I'll be supporting the resolution tonight. So there's two different kinds of CBD products, if I'm understanding the materials correctly. There's stuff that's THC derived, which is the active component for marijuana. And the question's for you, Colby, eventually. And then there's hemp-based CBD, correct, which, is supposedly has some sort of less of an impact or less of a high, I guess.
That's my understanding.
So what I'm curious about is the pathway of the injunction or the federal involvement. Was hemp-based THC permitted in like a farm bill or something? What's the angle for not permitting a state to regulate the distribution of a substance or a material in its own state.
Yeah, and the acts, those Arkansas acts at issue, are much broader than just a prohibition on consumable hemp products. I mean, they regulate other things related to consumable hemp products. So yeah, I think part of the issue is, at least the plaintiff's argument, is that the Arkansas legislation conflicts with some federal legislation, and therefore it's unconstitutional, and that you've got a state attempting to wade into and regulate an area where the federal law conflicts with it. And so based on the supremacy clause, the federal law should supersede. So I have not researched that case heavily, meaning reading all of the constitutional arguments and reading the Judge Wilson's rationale and issuing that preliminary injunction. But I just know the status of it today results in the state can enforce that act while that injunction's in place.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the board? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Director Settle?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Rigo?
Yes.
Good?
Yes.
Kemp?
Yes.
George Katsavas? Christina Katsavas?
Yes.
Motion passes 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Item number 4 is a discussion only.
Correct. This item is a discussion item regarding the issuance of a business license at 123 North 22nd. Ms. Wright?
Well, sorry.
Mr. Hafid applied for a business registration for a tobacco shop at 123 North 22nd Street on December 10th, 2024. The zoning on that property is commercial light, and a tobacco shop is permitted by right within that zoning district. A land use that is permitted by right is allowed without any special permits as long as it complies with other applicable regulations such as building code and fire code. Mr. Hafid submitted a building permit in conjunction with his business license. Once the modifications associated with the building permit were complete, Mr. Hafid received approval from the fire department as well as from the building department. Since the proposed use was a tobacco retailer, a tobacco permit from the state of Arkansas is required prior to the issuance of the license, and the tobacco permit was received. The business license was issued on April 29th, 2025. Section 1368 of the Fort Smith Municipal Code addresses revocation of licenses. In order to revoke a business license, a violation needs to be present. Once notice has been served, the holder has 10 days to request a notice of review with the city administrator, presenting additional information prior to final action. Additionally, planning staff inquired with Arkansas Tobacco Control in regard to a revocation process for tobacco permits. In summary, to revoke a tobacco permit, a retailer must have violated a statutory requirement. In this instance, neither the city nor the state are aware of a violation.
Okay. Thank you very much. We're open for discussion. Director Rigo.
Well, thank you, Maggie, for that information. I was one of the folks who requested it, and you laid it out for us, and I appreciated learning that information.
Okay.
Maggie?
Director George Katsavas and then Director
Yes, sir.
Kemp.
Did you not tell me that there were plans for a deli to go in there also?
Yes, sir. It's my understanding that Mr. Hafid intends to open a deli in one side of the building. It has multiple suites, and of course, the tobacco retailer on the other side.
And there's plenty of parking for that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Director Kemp and then Director Neil Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. I think my questions are more in the spirit of agenda item 3 and how it does play to agenda item 4. Obviously, I don't know if there's a representative to speak here to this matter or to even ask these questions, but my questions are things like this. Will Northside students who are no one over the age of 21, are they going to be permitted to go into the store and buy items? What items can they buy in that store? Is there any conversation to be had at all about marijuana leaves being not placed in the window with a neon sign? Whether these things ever come to public forum or not, those are the questions that I have, but also I'm appreciative of the memo and where it stands here. So thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Director Neil Martin.
So just to make sure I'm clear, with what we did in item 2, if back in December, this business would have come to us and would have wanted to get a business license for a tobacco shop, that would not have been allowed.
Correct.
Right, okay. The one thing I would say is I would I would ask the owner, that marijuana leaf, I think, is a point of contention with a lot of people. In the spirit of community, I would make a request to the owner to take the marijuana leaf down. You know, I don't think that does send a good message. And Principal Carter made mention of that. People 40 feet, kids 40 feet in a classroom can look out there and see that marijuana leaf. And I think that's pretty egregious. I don't think we can tell them to turn it. We can't make them take it away, can we?
No, sir.
Okay. I would just appeal on behalf of the city, that in behalf of the students, that they would take that down. So that's what I would ask.
Is the owner here? Would you like to make any comments? Again, we're looking for a common ground resolution.
There you
Oh, are you? Okay, Dr. Chung.
Hello to everybody.
Yes.
My planning for that business is not for the school at all. For a street, for Rikers driver and the other sides. Before I even get the lease, I call tobacco control, liquor authority. I called the planning and zoning multiple times, and I called each department multiple times to make sure I'm allowed to have tobacco and vape. They all gave me the okay. But my business there not for the students. I have 2 locations. One of them for the school, which is gonna be north side deli, New York style deli and convenience. The second side is tobacco. I was not counting on students at all. I got children myself. I've been working in Fort Smith 9 years. I never had a ticket or violation for selling to underage. Excuse my language, I'm not that dumb to count on students. My daughter in college. I've been working in King Tobacco as my cousin on it. We've been there for years. We the first one opened King Tobaccos. We didn't count on children's. But this is our education. I don't have no education level. We used to work in gas stations. We raise in businesses like gas stations, smoke shops, tobacco shops, no education level. And because the building is all the way inside, the building is not even facing Rikers. I have to put signs from the front to catch the driver's side. If you check the building design of the street is all the way inside. I have to put the sign on the side, not even in the front, to catch the driver attention.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. If there's no further discussion, thank you.
Mayor, we do have 2 individuals to speak on item 4.
Oh, okay. Who's next, Madam Clerk?
First is Mr. Han Chung.
Okay, Dr. Chung.
So I already read to you guys my letter before, and I'm actually going to submit that to you, Sherry. But, you know, I really want to address this. You guys are talking about the owner. I am an owner too. And my intention was never, I mean, I have kids, and I would severely discipline them if they ever had anything to do with vapes and whatnots, okay? But like Mr. Hafid said, he went through all the processes from the beginning to the end. And so my basic concern here is, as a property owner, my rights as a property owner, and also I'm concerned about due process. You know, this guy, he went through all this, he sunk in untold amounts of money. He was open about it. He did this from December. He called offices. So from that standpoint, as a small business owner, I have to support him. He's done everything he could. And, you know, I know you guys aren't going to do anything retroactive. I think that would be foolish, unconstitutional, and unconscionable, right? But the fact that it was even mentioned in discussion that, hey, can we do this retroactively? I'm worried about that spirit, you know, that you could come and just shut somebody down without discussion. And also, to talk about this as a whole agenda item on, my building, Mr. Hafid's business, like, hey, how did we issue this? Can we unissue it? That really, really worries me. That, now that he's visible, he's very visible. I don't like the yellow, and I don't like the green, and I don't like the cannabis leaf, right? But he's following the law.
Sure.
And I believe that if he's following the law, leave him be. It's his right. But I'm concerned, and the spirit of this discussion is that, he might be subjected to undue enforcement. Hey, let's get this guy out of here later by some other means.
Okay,
That's the feeling that I get.
Okay,
And I'm trying
thank you.
to protect those rights.
Okay, thank you.
And next we have Talisha Richardson.
Okay, thank you. Director Kemp, I saw your hand.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. I think just to the spirit of Mr. Chun, I appreciate your comments. I can put you at least at ease from my perspective of this, because I know I was on why we should look at this thing and make it retroactive and look at it. I think it was a fair point because it's not yet open for business. And so I think when we talk about something that was so close to being approved, but then the plans going forward being amended, is why this is a worthy of discussion to have. But I appreciate your comments. I am sentiment to that. I definitely don't want us to ever see government infringe upon the rights of people. I think that this, coming back to the practice of why we even had it, though, was the fact that it was not yet open for business. So I just want to make that point. Thank you.
Director Christina Savage.
Well, I would be curious to know what the definition of not yet open for business is, because, I spent 3 months getting my space ready, buying inventory, going to market, setting up accounts, getting insurance, business license, all those things. I mean, you can tell up here who's had a business and who hasn't. You don't go take someone's business away because they're not technically open. I mean, I've seen an open sign there, and I'll say, I'm not in support of tobacco products. I'm not in support of children having them. I think parents have a responsibility. I think parents have a role to monitor what their children are doing. I regulate how much sugar my child can have, what time she goes to bed. She can't have any red dye. I mean, parents have a responsibility here too, but this discussion to me is not worth having. It's shocking and it's concerning. It's concerning because it undermines the confidence in our regulatory process, and it sends the message to the business community, there's no stability here. Mr. Carter came last week and he spoke very passionately, and I really appreciated everything he had to say. I don't want to see a marijuana leaf there. I don't want to see things marketed towards children, but I do feel like the board has had a bit of an overreaction. I think we should have taken a beat, sobered up a little bit, analyzed the information, and then come up with a solution. So I was not in favor last week. I couldn't even sleep last Tuesday night because I was it just kept playing over and over in my mind, the idea that someone can go through the process, follow the law, and that we go and steal their business from them, rip their ability to make a living out from under their feet. My family came here as poor immigrants too, and worked with a hot dog stand and all the way up to the restaurant. And I understand that experience of coming to America and trying to make a living and living the American dream. And I think this discussion of retroactive is the exact opposite of that, and that's just not a government I want to be a part of.
Okay, thank you. With that, let's go to item 5.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 5 is a resolution authorizing a deductive change order for a consent decree construction project. Director of Water Utilities Lance McAvoy will speak to this item.
Good evening, Board. On May 7th, 2024, the Board of Directors approved a bid by Krapff Reynolds Construction Company for $840,550. And this was part of that bundled project that we had unbundled back in December. It was to be completed in December 31 of this year. The project included rehabilitation of approximately 354 sanitary sewer manholes by replacing frame and cover, grade adjustments, cementous cement lining, and other chemical grouting techniques. On December 17th of 2024, we brought change order 1 for an additional $127,470. And this was due to the fact that we found other manholes that had degraded to the point that they also needed to be remediated. The change order before you right now actually reduces the total amount, the original plus the change order, by $15,797.60. And it also reduces the amount of time by 250 days because this company completed the job it was declared completed on April 25th. Again, the date that it was supposed to be completed was December 31st of this year. So they exceeded the completion time. This project is a consent decree project and is funded by the 5/8 cents dedicated sales tax for consent decree. And I will stand for questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Any citizens' comments, Madam Clerk?
None indicating.
Okay, motion to adopt the resolution.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Any further comments from the board? Director Neil Martin.
Lance, you did make mention that this was one of the projects that we broke out. They're all supposed to be complete by December 31st of 25.
Yes.
What's the progress that we're making on, I mean, obviously this one's, I think we're closing this one out on the next item. How are the other ones doing?
Several of them are on task. We actually have already done one change order for some additional line work. The board actually approved that, but the original work that's needed to be done should be completed on time.
Okay, thank you.
We are meeting that requirement.
Okay, any further questions on this item? Director Settle.
Lance, has this company been on any other consent decree projects?
I believe it has. This just happened to be the one that they were lowest bidder on.
Under the amendments under, right? Reduced time?
I think this is the first one that they've gotten.
Okay, but
they bid on others, but they were not, this was the one that they were the first time they were the lowest bidder.
They cut off 250 days.
Yes.
That's massive.
It is.
You kind of said what I'm thinking, so thank you very much, Lance, appreciate it.
Any further questions? Okay. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Directors Martin,
Yes.
Rego,
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
George Katsavas. George
Yes.
Katsavas?
He said
Okay.
yes.
Christina Katsavas?
Yes.
Settle.
Yes.
It's approved, 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Item 6.
Item 6 is a resolution accepting the project as complete and authorizing final pay to Krapff Reynolds Construction Company for a consent decree improvement project. Mr. McAvoy?
Yes. The final pay amount is $50,318.62. This was a very successful project, and we hope to be working with them again in future projects. And I'll stand for questions.
Motion to approve item 6.
Second.
Let's see if there's any citizens' comments. Are
None
there?
indicating.
Okay. We do have a motion and a second. Director Neil Martin.
Lance, on page 176 and 177, just for my benefit, could you briefly describe what we're seeing here? I'm looking down a manhole, but can you tell me what the difference between the before and after? It's on the
Yes, so if you actually kind of look at the before and then the after, you'll notice that the after almost looks like a shiny concrete.
Right.
So that was actually lined. It basically restored the interior so that water cannot infiltrate into that manhole.
So the one on the left, there's water, or it's porous.
Yes, and you can actually see on your bottom right-hand side, you've got the steps that have been removed because of safety issues.
Right.
But you can notice those dark stains on the right-hand lower part on the left-hand side photo. That's actually what's known as intrusion weeping. So we actually, when this photo was taken, water was already weeping in to the manhole. So it was already demonstrating infiltration.
So when we have events like last night, that gets in the manhole.
And then you have wet weather SSOs.
Okay, go to the next one.
Next one
This is the same thing?
Same situation.
All right.
And they also, the one that they're taking on the after photo, it looks like they may have taken that after the frame, which is what holds the manhole.
Level.
They had removed it to do that, and they hadn't put that back in. They were showing that they had fixed the interior. Then the new frame went on it, and the manhole cover went on top.
And then the last one there on page 178?
This was a frame and cover. So the frame, so you have the manhole cover, and that sits in the frame, and if that doesn't sit properly, when it rains, it just seeps right in and can fill, and that's actually another infiltration situation.
So we don't have we don't see the manhole cover and how it sits, but
Correct.
that's what's happening here.
Correct.
So on the right side, it sits evenly.
Yes.
Water doesn't get in. Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Directors Rego,
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
George Katsavas.
Yes.
Christina Katsavas.
Yes.
Settle.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
It's approved, 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
This time we go to the consent agenda.
Tonight, there are 5 items listed on the consent agenda. The first is a resolution authorizing waiver and permit of inspection fees for the Fort Smith Museum of History project. Next, then we have a resolution authorizing amendment to engineering design contract on Massard Road project. A resolution authorizing partial payment to Forsgren on an overlay project. Resolution authorizing completion and final pay for a different overlay project. And a resolution authorizing purchase of a multi-jurisdiction module for the CAD RMS project.
Any item for special consideration? Okay,
I've got a question on C
C,
and E.
C.
No,
and
C and, just C.
just which one?
Just
now?
C. Just C. Sorry, Mayor.
Okay, you may proceed.
Stan, how much work is left on, I think Phoenix is done, but is there just another payment that we've got to make for the work that happened or after this payment? Is that kind of what's?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So the roadway work was completed on time. They striped it on the 15th, which
Right.
was
And it looks great. By the way, I'll say this: the potholes are not the potholes. The manholes. The manholes are good. Crossing that train track is great. I mean, I'd encourage everybody to cross the train track on Phoenix. It is smooth. You can hit it pretty quick, and there's no.
they did a very good job.
They did a
on
really
it.
good job.
Yeah, and we adjusted some curb on the side too
Okay.
that helped with the transition to that. And we actually there's about 10 manholes that we've got to do some adjustment on
Okay.
to do that. We have some sewer work, because you may recall this project also has some sewer work that we're doing.
Right.
There's some additional sewer work that's on, not in Phoenix, it's on 24th.
That's where that was. I
And
remember.
then we also have some additional work as part of another overlay, but it's similar work to what we're doing on this. We're probably going to be bringing a change order back for that,
Okay.
probably at the next meeting.
So you think we'll be going over the 5.6 million total?
Well, it's a pretty significant amount of money, but it's kind of something that's out of the realm of the original contract,
Okay.
so we need to bring it back.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you, Stan.
Director Kemp?
Yeah, Stan, while you're here, and since this was pulled for the question, do we know when on schedule the plan would be for the actual intersection of Old Greenwood Road in Phoenix? Is that going to be down the road, or is that next to come? Or? It's not on there. I believe it's actually, I believe from there going back to the interstate and going back to in front of the Pavilion Shopping Center. Yeah. That's actually RDOT
It's state
facility. Okay, so will the intersection, will that be RDOT too?
Yes.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Okay, it's pretty rough.
Because all the way to, from Phoenix to Zero, Highway 45, that's state highway also.
Thank you. Yeah.
Madam Clerk, were there any citizens' comments on any of these items?
Yes, item 7A is Phil White.
Okay, Phil, you recognize? Okay. Okay, thank you, Phil. Thank you.
And then also for 7B, we have Andy Postrick and Joe Elskin, and then Alan, looks like Deaver to answer questions.
Hi, good evening. My name's Andy Posterick. I love living in Fort Smith. I'm a daily trails user. If this bridge goes in, I would probably use it just about more than anybody else in the city, and I would love it. But I would really encourage you to pull out this item on the agenda and have a serious discussion about this. And if you can't think of anything to discuss about it, I'd like to bring up 2 points. The first is, in the cycling community, we have this phrase that all bike infrastructure is car infrastructure. And what that means is, I don't need much help to ride my bike. If a deer makes a path through the woods, I can ride my bike there for free. The more that you spend on a highway, the more you have to spend to make it safe for cyclists and pedestrians. So this feels like a canary in the coal mine, that we're designing this roadway to be extra fast and extra dangerous to make it more dangerous for me on my commute every day. The second point I'd like to bring up is the fact we were talking about children earlier, and I have this beyond blame idea. And certainly whenever there's an accident involving a child, nobody can blame a child for an accident. And so much safety improvements are made for the safety of children. So the thrust of my argument here is that we do have safety issues in this town. We had a child killed on Kelly Highway on the north side of town in September of last year, and that was in the Fort Smith School District. And if I were a school board member, which I'm not, but if I were, I would wonder why the city is spending so much money for a safety improvement for the Greenwood School District, where this will be located, and not on our own school children. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Joe Elskin.
Hi, thank you. I'm apologizing because I feel like when something's a done deal and people come up and say it shouldn't be done and, take it away, it's a waste of your time. If this is a done deal, I'm sorry. I wanted to let you know that I have looked at some of the resources that Andy uses and tried out some of the concepts, driving slower than the speed limit, and he's right, or his resources are right. It is safer. I just wonder what the benefits or necessity is of making this street wider, because it is, people fly down Massard. And when you get to the narrowing, you have to slow down. So I know you've got an engineering contract, you've got to pay it, but widening, I feel like the homeowners are against the widening and safety is against the widening. And if you can undo something of it, please. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Director Neil Martin and then Director Kemp.
Jeff, you sent us an email about this specific topic, in the fact that we've already got a contract. This is an amendment to the contract, but this does not authorize the city to widen Massard.
Correct. This is not the construction project. This is the design only.
This is just the design only. So,
Correct.
so we obviously have to do the vote, since we had the vote to reallocate sales tax last week. I think we need to get back together and look at the CIP as it relates to streets, bridges, and drainage, and determine if all of these, or look at all those projects again to determine the feasibility and the need. But in reality, Massard, the widening of Massard is not happening anytime soon. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So there's nothing, we don't have a plan for next year to start construction?
Well, on the CIP, I think starting in '26, but as you mentioned, with that CIP needs to be revisited in time.
So we won't start on this without revision or without reviewing the CIP. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Director Kemp?
I will withdraw. Director Martin asked exactly what I was asking. The email that we received from administration yesterday made it clear that this is not happening for years. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, this time we will adopt a motion to adopt all consent agenda items.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Any further comments from the board? Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Directors Good,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
George Katsavas,
He had to leave.
Christina Katsavas,
Yes.
Settle.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Rigo.
Yes.
Motion passes 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
This time we go to the officials forum. The only thing I have is we're very proud of two of our young men that will be going to the NBA championship quarterfinal, semi-round. Isaiah Joe and Jalen Williams. So if you like basketball, it's a good thing, good time to watch.
Play tonight.
Director Rigo. Okay, Director Good.
Nothing, sir.
Director Kemp.
Yes, Mayor, I have one item. I'd like to make a motion that we would have a discussion with Mayor Johnson from Arcoma with the Fort Smith Board of Directors on Tuesday, May 27th, just to show my cards. It doesn't change in the sense of where we were, but the way that the city of Fort Smith was discussed, I think, is not completely accurate. And I myself would welcome the conversation so that we can have a dialogue to help maybe the public itself on record to understand the situation. But I'll just throw that out there.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Mayor, sorry, I was walking back up. I'd be supportive of that as well. Because I think the conversation, I mean, I think it deserves a chance to have facts, be disseminated in I think, a better setting than the setting that we had last week for the study session. And knowing, if something were to be on an agenda, knowing that it was coming up, knowing who was going to be present from, both sides, et cetera. So, I'd be in favor of that.
I would, thank you for that. And I would just reiterate the sentiment of why is because when this will set a precedence when we have to deal with any other particular organized board, that we can have fair, honest conversations. I was actually not even aware until that moment that they were even present. And I think we could have resolved one more news article and one more round of information just by simply having the dialogue that we could have had. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Christina Savage.
I was just made aware that the gentleman operating the vape store across from Northside has agreed to take down the marijuana leaf.
Thank you.
That's a win for all of us. Thank
Director
you.
Settle.
Thank you, Mayor. To the citizens of Fort Smith, I want to thank you last week for voting in the sales tax reallocation, allowing us to finally put some dollars to it and get the consent decree funded and move forward. So I thank the citizens of Fort Smith. I thank the board. I'd like to thank the committee that put together the sales tax vote. Former Director Von Morton played a pivotal part, so I want to thank him personally. And to the citizens, thank you again. I think you did help us set the city forward, and we can move forward and get this consent decree taken care of and paid for. Thank you.
Director Neil Martin.
A while back, I'd asked for a study session with the Chamber of Commerce to have them come here and talk about, what's going on in terms of new businesses around the city. As much as they can talk about. We want to bring jobs here. I do read the reporting of Talk Business and Politics, and there was a article about the growth in the city of Fort Smith. We were between 2020 and 2024, we were like 1.7%, something like that, if I remember right. I would like to bring that together as a part of the same discussion and look at continued growth in the city, how we're going to manage that. In looking at the numbers, the growth rate population-wise for a city our size is less than our peers, and I would like to study the why and maybe try to understand how we can increase that. We're over 90,000 now, but I think our growth rate is less than others. So I want to try to address that and see what we can do. And that's where I think the chamber comes in with jobs and things like that. Our unemployment rate is really down. It's low. So that tells me there's not a ton of people looking for jobs. I think we need more jobs here to bring more people here in order to continue a sustainable growth pattern. So
I second that.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Dingman, you're recognized.
My only comment is that the city offices will be closed on Monday, May 26th, in observance of Memorial Day.
Okay. Thank you very much. At this time, we're going to go into an executive session for a performance evaluation of our acting city administrator. Thank you. We're going to reconvene. There was no action taken, and we will put on the agenda another executive session when all board members are present.
The executive session in 2 weeks, we're requesting is to talk about the internal audit candidate and continue our discussion with the city administrator.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I second that.
We have a second. Is there any further?
I'll speak up.
Yeah, go ahead.
In 2 weeks, the board of directors will have another executive session to talk about the internal auditor hiring candidate, or what we're going to do forward with the internal auditor, and continue discussions with our performance of the city administrator when all board members are present.
Okay,
Second.
thank you. Is all in favor? All right, motion to adjourn. Thank you.